All right, so we are pretty much finished with all the code. Last thing I want to take a look at is the folder structure here. So you can see now it's getting a little bit cluttered here in the source directory. We have our components, our actual JSX files. We have this main script, which essentially, well, puts our app into the HTML, right? If you remember that. We have a CSS file, we have this constants file. So maybe we can add a little bit more organization here. So one thing we can do for all of these components is we could create a separate folder for that here in the source folder. So we can just create a folder here, components. I will write it with lowercase. And then all my components I'm going to put in there. So I'm going to select all of my components. So app, let's see, also container here. Make sure you don't select constants.js there. But all of these other components, right, I'm going to put in there. So I can just click and drag this. I have 9 in total. I'm going to drag them into components there. It's going to ask me if I'm sure if I want to move 9 files. I'm going to say yes, move. When you move files around, you want to be careful because remember, when you import something, it needs to know where that something that you're importing is located. So we have import statements, and then you have this dot forward slash, dot forward slash. So when you move things around, the location of what you're importing may change, right? So now in a modern code editor as well, it should be able to automatically update that for you. So here I'm getting this question for me, update imports. Well, yes. So here, sometimes it will open up the file here. So for me, it has opened up the file because, for example, here we are using those max characters constants. And before, if you remember, it was something like dot forward slash, right? But now, since we moved the container here in a separate folder, well, it's not in the same directory anymore, right? Constants is now here. I need to move up one folder into source, and then there is constants, right? So your code editor should be able to help you out there quite a bit. So that's one thing we can do here. Let me close all of this. Then we have all of the components. Now, typically, when you have your constants here and maybe some other things as well, you want to create a separate folder for that as well. Typically, this one is called lib for library. So we can create one as well. And I'm going to put the constants in there. So I'm going to move there. And again, get a suggestion for updating imports. I want that, yes. So now it actually opens up my container file again because now this path has changed again. I'm going to save that. It looks good. Okay, so now this is also in a separate folder. So other things you're going to see here is something like utils, utility functions. Basically, you're uppercasing strings very often in your application, and you want to extract that into a separate JavaScript function. Well, you could create a utils.js file for that. You can also have custom hooks. Very often, you want to have hooks. We'll talk more about that. So basically, things that you're going to use often in your application, you want to put that in a library. All right, so then we also have our index.css. Now we could create a separate folder for CSS. Some people do that. I will leave it like that. And then we have our main, which basically just takes our app component and puts that in that div, that empty div in the HTML. Right, but this is one way to clean up our folder structure a little bit. And when we go back, and if I make this a little bit wider, if I refresh, we actually get an issue here because I changed the location of the app. And for some reason that has not been updated here. So here indeed, I'm still importing the app from the same directory and then in the app file, but now it's in the components folder first. So here first it needs to go into components. And now if I save here, let's see if now everything works, refresh, yeah. So now if I type here something, this is an example. All right, so everything is working. We have nice clean structure. And we actually reinforced the fundamentals of React. We actually saw some more advanced things as well with derived state or computed state, however you want to call that. But basically, instead of creating new state, you're just going to create a normal JavaScript variable and just calculate it from already existing state. Right? So that's actually already beyond the fundamentals, I would say. So well done for finishing this project. I hope that you learned even more here. And I have even more amazing projects for you ready. So let's quickly continue.